In this video, we're going to look at the number one problem facing most customer education teams when it comes to technology, and that is picking the wrong tool for the job to be done. And I don't mean which vendor or brand you purchase. I really mean assigning the incorrect tool to perform a critical function in your business. For customer education teams, this misalignment happens with what I call your big three, and that's your CRM, or your customer relationship management system, your CMS, which is your content management system, and your LMS, which is your learning management system. So in this video, we're going to break down the roles of each of these technologies within your business, illustrate how to go about selecting that technology and then implementing tools to create a customer education program that's seamless and fully integrated. So first, let's define the big three in the roles. You may already know what the CRM, the CMS, and the LMS are, but let's define what the acronyms are. And again, if you don't, it's perfectly okay. In fact, if you're just starting a customer education journey or moving into this role, all of these terms and tools may be new, and that's perfectly okay. So, in our big three, first, we have the customer relationship management tool, or the CRM. And this is the central hub that's going to store all of the data related to your customers. It should hold and store really the most common activities or engagement for your site products, and it will likely store things like sales activities, support requests, or notes from your team, right? Over here on the left, we have the CMS, and that is the content management system. Many companies view their website really as almost a digital brochure, but your website can quickly turn into a really powerful technology if you leverage a CMS tool that presents, relevant information to your prospects, your customers, and your partners quickly. And that's really why I reference these things as a CMS and not just a website, because the function of a website, could be many different things, but the function of a content management system is to organize and present content in a very, effective way and help people discover and find things that are important to them. So, and then over here on the right, we have the LMS, and the LMS stands for Learning Management System. And this is the system that delivers your course content, it tracks progress and completions, and it delivers really all of the, the certificates and completion records and relevant learning information to your team and to your clients or customers. Now, there are many layers to this kind of big three stack, and a lot of organizations have all sorts of other tools integrated in all sorts of automations and technologies that kind of enhance this recipe, right? For the purpose of this video, though, I'm only focused on these three technologies because if you define the roles and responsibilities for your organization with these core, three things, you can then go about designing customer education experiences appropriately. You can start to look at where are we distributing content, how are we distributing content, how are people finding it, where are they going, which platform is doing that, and who's kind of managing those systems. And so what you'll see is this is really an integrated ecosystem where these three tools work together quite well. But that misalignment again happens if we start to put the wrong role and responsibility on the wrong platform. The biggest challenge is that teams can easily assign or select the wrong technology or the tool to perform a job, right? And so over time, this makes the task a lot more complicated, a lot more time consuming, and especially more challenging. And so oftentimes, it's easy to blame an individual for not having the skills or not giving them the opportunity to learn those skills, or it's, the departments don't understand our business or whatever that is. But a lot of times, just in my perspective, it's teams who are doing the best they can with the tools they've been given to perform those jobs to be done, but often they're given the wrong tools and technology to do it really, really well. And so they are putting tools and technology in the places to do the jobs those tools and technologies were not designed to do. And customer education and training is perhaps one area in business where this challenge has really never been more prevalent, right? Because as more teams and more companies start to launch and scale and deliver really high quality training experiences, it's easy to pick a tool or a platform that's going to get this job done, this week or this quarter, or it's going to be an easy investment for our budget and things like that. But picking those tools kind of ad hoc or just in the moment, it's easy to not really understand the longer term impact that those decisions have. So in many cases, this is assigning the wrong job to one of the big three platforms in your customer education stack. So some examples of this misalignment look like trying to run your blog or deliver white papers or something like that on your learning management system, and then trying to have, like marketing communications and all this stuff happening as a trigger from your LMS. It can be done. It's not necessarily the preferred way to do it. Another common example of this looks like trying to host a community in your CRM technology or deliver courses through your CMS technology, trying to track completion data and come up with some mechanism to track learner data and activity and things. So now, again, granted, for any example that I give in this video, you can point to a company or a team that's doing exactly what I just used as a misalignment, and they're doing it really, really well. But I mean, this is likely that whatever recipe they've identified is working for their specific processes and the other applications they already have. And, it's meeting the job to be done for that team. And so if you feel friction in your process, if you're finding that these things are not syncing, they're not automated, it's not as fluid as you'd like, often that is pointing to a misalignment in one of the big three, right? So again, every business is different, but there's a ton of energy and time wasted in having the wrong tools doing the wrong jobs and, just impacting the outcomes of the overall project. So in a perfect or ideal world, every interaction in your business is tracked in the CRM automatically or with very minimal input from an individual. And so this includes any engagement or interactions with people inside your company or digitally on the CMS or on the LMS technologies, right? And because this technology is integrated with your CMS and LMS, you can now start to provide customers with helpful and relevant information that continues to provide them with value and position you as a trusted solution and further your relationship with them. As the lines between new technologies blur, your LMS can start to look a lot like a CRM, or it might start to behave a lot like a CMS, but often, if you start to lean on those tools, you'll find that your LMS is missing critical, pieces of functionality and features to provide the same level of, functionality as purpose-built tools like a CRM or a CMS. Some platforms have been designed to be an all-in-one solution, right? Performing a function of a CRM and a CMS and an LMS in some degree, right? And these are perfect for, I would say, smaller teams or organizations that are, they don't have as many people involved, like they don't have a multi-person sales team, they don't have a multi-person marketing team, they don't have several people in customer success and support and training and things like that. So it could just be a smaller scale. And so if you're needing either all three of these tools, or you don't have a scale where you have to have multiple team members on each kind of side of that, there's platforms like Kajabi that are really all-in-one tools. They have your CRM, your CMS, your LMS, all in one system. And that could be a really great way to start out. But if your company has already invested in one of these other big three tools, if you already have a CRM in place, if you already have an LMS in place, or you already have a CMS in place or something like that, going for one of these all-in-one solutions is likely, possibly, not going to quite meet the needs of each of those areas individually. And you're also paying for features that you have replicated in other tools. So again, understanding kind of the roles to be done and what you need, those gaps that you need to fill, is really, really important to help save kind of time, money, and then pick the right resource. But again, if your company already has established systems and tools, it's now the process of aligning the job to be done with the tools that you have in place, and then making a decision that helps you meet the experiences that you're hoping to provide to your customers. Like most everything else, there are many, many ways to get to that ideal state for your specific team and your customer education goals. So what I would do is map out some common use cases, right? Like what happens if a client engages in a blog or a guide or downloads something from the website? Will you know that they're interested in learning about that particular topic or maybe that particular feature set or something like that? And then could you recommend a course or a learning path for them based on that activity on the CMS? So now we're looking at how do we bridge our CMS and our LMS? Kind of vice versa on the other side. Like what if someone completes a course? Will you know what to do with them after they complete that course? Can you hand them back to a CMS or hand them to a marketing team who can engage them in events or new guides, or product teams who can announce new features and things like that? How are you going to hand them back off, right? And then if you think about from a support side, which is really common with like SaaS technology product companies, what about support tickets and help desk requests? If someone puts in a ticket related to an item that you already have content on your CMS about, or you already have courses and training on, during that support ticket process, are you going to be able to acknowledge the fact that you have that content, you have those programs, and then you can actually, help customers self-serve in addition to working with a support team member? And then finally, how about your events and your webinars and things like that? If someone engages in event-based content or activity, will you be able to uniquely recommend relevant next steps, maybe on-demand training, maybe a cohort that you have coming up or something like that? Can you know the activities that are event-based, whether on the LMS or the CMS? Can you store that in CRM? And then can you build those automations around, we need to help folks know what the next step is to take with us. And so these are pretty common tasks and requests, I think, that really blend customer education and marketing and sales and in customer success largely. It really blends those responsibilities. So it does take a team approach. As a customer education person, I can't make those decisions and those technologies on my own. And I also can't just stay limited to the technology I control, mainly the LMS. I need to look for ways to bridge those gaps and start working with other departments so that our customer experiences are excellent. So before anyone purchases another platform or tool, map out what the best case scenario looks like for your education team and all of those that you're supporting. Then, when you select additional tools or platforms, you'll have a much better idea of the data that you need, the experience that it needs to deliver, and then how it should be integrated into everything that you already have. Then, with this information, identify some immediate short-term goals and then a path towards your ultimate ideal state, right? And there's probably a drastic difference between where you're at now and where you want to start, those quick wins, and ultimately where you want to be in several years. And so you want to make sure that you are examining, reviewing, and allocating for those short-term goals. In many cases, there's a difference between your short-term goals and what you need to do now in the immediate future and where you ultimately want to be. But what you may decide when you map those two things out is that you want to move quickly, you want to test solutions inexpensively, and really you want to play around and experiment with the different customer education program experiences and types of customer education you want to provide. And so you may not want to buy an enterprise class system that's really complicated and fully integrated into everything. You may want to move fast and inexpensively and just test a bunch of different things first. Then once you figure out what's working, you can, again, go back to your map, go back to the types of experiences and the types of program you want to have, and then start to pick tools and invest a little bit more seriously there. So, if you're doing that staged approach, define those short-term targets, and then also identify when it's time to move on as you outgrow that technology. Because ultimately you want to outgrow, current state tools, current state products and programs. You want to continue to evolve and add new things into the mix. And so just figure out when it makes sense, at what scale will you need another platform, and just plan with that in mind. On the other hand, if you're already at scale, you already have the resources and team members and all of that in place to manage really robust customer education, then start there and invest in the tools, again, that make sense for your plan, that you've mapped out for the data, for the experience types that you need, and then supporting all of those in customer education. Most importantly is to commit to the plan and test along the way. There's always a new tool, there's always a new shiny object that comes along the way, and don't abandon what you've already done, the experiences you've already defined. Don't abandon it just yet until you've proven that it's either working or not working. Commit and stick to those short-term plans and implementations with an eye toward your long-term solution. New tools, platform, and technology and all of that is a challenge to get rolled out for many teams. You've got to get team buy-in. You've got to look at the resources you're going to need, both money and people, and really everything else. So it's a project. Don't get discouraged. Don't chase the shiny object. Just stick to your short-term and mid-term plans and get one step closer to your ideal customer education state. All right, that wraps this episode. I hope that you found this video helpful and useful. Again, my name is Matt Tidball, the founder of Think Through. We're an agency that helps brands build training that customers love and out-teach their competition. Share this episode if you found it helpful. Drop me a note in the comments with questions, and subscribe if you haven't already. Take care, and I'll see you in the next episode.